Hi there, I'm Daniel Weishut from Jerusalem. I'm a clinical psychologist teaching at the Department of Social Work at Hadassah Academic College. My colleague, who also is a former student of mine, and I will present to you a study on sexual abuse among ultra-Orthodox Jewish social work students.
Hi, I'm Yitzhak Beker. I'm about to finish my undergraduate studies in social work at the Ultra-Orthodox campus of Hadassah Academic College. This study, in which I was both participant and researcher, is about my community.
We'll start a presentation with a short introduction. Then comes a section on the methodology we used, and this will be followed by the results of our study on the extent to which our subjects experienced sexual abuse or knew people in a circle of their close acquaintances who did so. We'll finish with a discussion regarding our findings and the conclusion of our study. Our introduction has three parts. First, we'll clarify the link between sexual abuse, health, and wellness. Then, we'll share with you some data about the prevalence of sexual abuse around the globe. Hereafter, we'll provide some background about ultra-Orthodox Jewish society and the delicacy of the topic of sexual abuse in this environment. Sexual abuse is a form of violence that can have a significant impact on a person's health and wellness, especially when it happens in childhood and is recurrent. Survivors of sexual abuse may experience psychological symptoms such as anxiety, depression, and post-traumatic stress disorder. Sexual abuse may also result in physical health issues, whether directly or as a consequence or related to psychological issues. These include pain as well as sleep, eating, substance, and sexual disorders. But sexual abuse is a public health issue as well, as it goes beyond the immediate victim and can impact families, communities, and society at large. Let's have a look at some global studies on sexual abuse. First, Stollenberg and others did a meta-analysis on 270 studies on sexual abuse in childhood, with a total of almost 10 million subjects. They found that 18% of the women and 8% of the men reported sexual abuse. Then, Pan and colleagues in a recent study did also a meta-analysis, done on a much smaller scale, and they only studied women. They found that 24% of them experienced abuse. Last, Houghton and others did a literature study on male sexual abuse, not just in childhood, and reported on 16% of the men having experienced abuse.
I will now share a bit about Ultra-Orthodox Society, a society to which I belong. The Ultra-Orthodox Society numbers about 13% of Israeli society. Life is lived according to the Torah and strict rules of Jewish tradition. Education is separated by gender, with separate schools for boys and girls. Modesty is a central value. This affects all aspects of life, including dress and conversation. There is hardly any contact between women and men. In ultra-Orthodox society, there is a taboo on talking about sexuality in general and on the issue of sexual abuse in particular. Therefore, the term abuse is hardly used. This taboo created a lack of clarity and understanding of what sexual abuse is. Moreover, there is a little research on this subject and a lack of quantitative data as suggested by Elfandri, Enosh, and Rechnitzer. See here two files published at the time of this study within the ultra-Orthodox community. This research was done in a period where the majority was against discussing sexual abuse, see left picture, and the minority was in favor of discussion, see right picture. Note, for reasons of modesty, neither of the flyers uses the term sexual abuse. To achieve sexual health and wellness, we need to promote and educate about the subject. However, the existing taboo in ultra-Orthodox society makes talking difficult. Understanding that the subject is important to social broke students, we created a study day on sexual abuse with lectures and discussions. As part on study day, there were small groups in which students shared their thoughts and feelings on the topic.
At the end of the study day, one of the group leaders shared the following feedback. About half of the group's participants shared the severe trauma they experienced in the past. One after the other, first students who knew me and then some who didn't. They told where it happened, some on the street, some in institutions, about the struggle and how it still accompanies them. Someone suggested that it might not be a coincidence that a significant portion of those who chose to be a therapist are people who have experienced abuse. Other group leaders shared with us similar experiences. We'll touch briefly on the methodology of the study. We used an online anonymous questionnaire specifically on sexual abuse, though we did not give a definition of sexual abuse. In fact, we used the term protectedness, since in the ultra-orthodox community it is inappropriate to call a topic by its name. Having said that, with the term protectedness, it was expected that all understood what was meant. The questionnaire was part of a larger participative action study performed in the Department of Social Work at the Ultra-Orthodox campus.
The demographics of the study were as follows. About half of our subjects were women and the other half men. Compared to other regions in the world, our students are relatively old, with only a third in the age at which people in the West go to college. Two-thirds were married. As the study was performed at the Ultra-Orthodox campus, all were religious and the vast majority Ultra-Orthodox. We'll now present the results of the study. In the questionnaire, we asked two questions. Were you yourself sexually abused? And do you know someone close to you who has been sexually abused? So, let us first look at how many students reported on sexual abuse. Clearly, the results of this question are not a factual representation of the prevalence, because a variety of factors affect reporting, and also because we left the interpretation of what is considered sexual abuse for the subjective interpretation. Since we expected that for many it would not be clear whether they were abused, we added the option of perhaps abused. 82 women answered the questionnaire. Of these, 29% reported they were abused. 89 men answered the questionnaire, with 21% reporting they had been abused. An additional 80% of the women and 21% of the men reported that they were perhaps abused. This last finding points at the unclarity of the definition of sexual abuse and raises of possibility that many more than the initial 29% women and 21% men were abused.
The second question was whether they know someone close who experienced sexual abuse. We asked this question first of all to see to what extent sexual abuse is something they are aware of. And in addition, we considered that some may be reluctant to share that they were abused and instead would say that they know someone who, referring to themselves in the third person in a more anonymous way, which is a way of expressing something that fits ultra-orthodox norms. Looking at these two graphs, we see that an overwhelming majority of people reported that they knew someone who was abused. 82% of the women and 60% of the men. And then there was a small group of subjects who weren't sure this other person was abused. Only very few, 5% for the women and 10% for the men, were not aware of anyone who was abused. We then performed logistic regression with 4 variables: gender, age, religiousness, and family status. We found that the odds of reporting being sexually abused increased almost 3 times for women as compared to men, with all other variables kept even. The odds increased 4 times for those above 30 as compared to those below 24. The specific details about the significance of these findings you can see on the screen now. No differences were found based on religiousness or family status.
We will now discuss the limitation of the study and share some additional thoughts related of these findings. It is important to note that this is a small-scale study on social work students only. We may expect a higher awareness of sexual abuse among social work students than in the general ultra-orthodox society. We did not define what sexual abuse is, and the subjects answered according to their subjective definition. This definition does not necessarily lie with common terms in the field. In addition, we did not tell apart sexual abuse in childhood and adulthood, which is likely to have raised of numbers somewhat.
If we take into account the percentage of people who reported being perhaps abused sexually, we see that the prevalence in our study is relatively high. Possibly, this has to do with the fact that our subjects are all social work students. In any case, these findings raise a series of questions. Do their studies make them more sensitive to abuse? Do they feel more confident to disclose abuse? Does abuse make them more inclined to choose this field of studies? Then, do older students report more abuse since they experienced more, or for other reasons? And do the findings say anything about sexual abuse in ultra-orthodox society at large? Unfortunately, we do not have yet clear answers to any of these questions. This brings us to our conclusion, which is fourfold. Ultra-Orthodox Jewish social work students experience sexual abuse at least as much as reported for other populations. The prevalence is possibly higher since more than a few reported being perhaps abused. You can see the percentages now on the screen. In addition, it is a well-known fact for ultra-Orthodox social work students that there is sexual abuse even among people close. These findings are of special significance as they contrast with the notion of a community in which sexual abuse is often belittled and viewed as a rare phenomenon. Findings leave many questions, as we shared before, which could be addressed in future research. Also on behalf of my colleague Yitzhak Beker, thank you for listening. We hope you enjoyed our presentation. If you have any questions or remarks, please don't hesitate to contact us at the email address you see on the screen.